Major Alexandra Reynolds never talked about her achievements, always deflecting praise with a quiet, just doing what anyone would do. In 18 months, she had personally assisted 47 pilots during in-flight emergencies, saving lives when critical systems failed at 30,000 feet. Her technical knowledge and quick thinking had prevented dozens of crashes. The media called her the guardian angel of the skies. But when Air Force investigators finally examined the maintenance logs and flight data from her rescue missions, they uncovered the impossible truth. Reynolds' timing was perfect because she knew exactly when and how each aircraft would fail. She had sabotaged them herself. Which city in the world are you watching this video from today? Please subscribe and support us for more stories. Major Alexandra Reynolds had established herself as the most reliable and technically proficient pilot in the United States Air Force through a combination of exceptional flying skills, comprehensive mechanical knowledge, and an uncanny ability to assist fellow pilots during critical in-flight emergencies that could have resulted in catastrophic aircraft losses. Reynolds' military aviation career had begun during a period of technological advancement in fighter aircraft systems, where pilots were required to master increasingly complex avionics, weapons systems, and emergency procedures that demanded both technical expertise and split-second decision-making under extreme pressure. The humble personality that defined Reynolds' professional interactions reflected her genuine discomfort with recognition and her preference for focusing on mission accomplishment rather than personal achievements, making her deflection of praise seem authentic to colleagues who viewed her as the embodiment of military professionalism. Her approach to flight operations emphasized comprehensive pre-flight preparation, meticulous attention to technical details, and continuous monitoring of squadron aircraft performance that enabled her to identify potential problems before they could compromise mission safety or pilot welfare. The technical expertise that Reynolds had developed throughout her military career included advanced knowledge of aircraft systems, electronics, communications equipment, and emergency procedures that made her an invaluable resource for pilots experiencing mechanical difficulties or navigation problems. Reynolds' flight experience encompassed a wide range of aircraft types and mission profiles, from basic training aircraft to advanced fighter jets, providing her with comprehensive understanding of aviation systems and their potential failure modes across different platforms and operational environments. The squadron culture that Reynolds helped create emphasized mutual support, technical excellence, and collective responsibility for pilot safety that made her willingness to assist troubled aircraft seem like natural extension of military values and professional dedication. Her leadership style combined technical competence with personal humility that earned respect from both junior pilots seeking guidance and senior officers, evaluating her potential for command positions and increased responsibility within the Air Force hierarchy. The maintenance knowledge that Reynolds had acquired through extensive study and hands-on experience with aircraft systems enabled her to communicate effectively with ground crews and provide valuable insights for troubleshooting complex mechanical problems that could affect flight safety. But Reynolds' comprehensive understanding of aircraft systems and emergency procedures had also provided her with detailed knowledge of exactly how to create mechanical failures and system malfunctions that would appear to be random equipment problems rather than deliberate sabotage. The psychological motivation driving Reynolds' systematic sabotage of fellow pilots was rooted in a complex need for recognition and professional validation that conflicted with her outwardly humble personality and created internal pressure to demonstrate her expertise through dramatic rescue operations. The childhood background that contributed to Reynolds' psychological dysfunction included growing up in a military family where achievement was measured by heroic actions and life-saving interventions, creating unrealistic expectations for demonstrating value through crisis management rather than routine competence. The early warning signs of Reynolds' issues had been present during flight training, where instructors noted her tendency to volunteer for the most dangerous rescue training scenarios and her disappointment when simulated emergencies were resolved without requiring her intervention. The progression of Reynolds' sabotage operations had begun with minor technical problems that required simple troubleshooting assistance and gradually escalated to more serious system failures that demanded complex emergency procedures and life-saving interventions that showcased her expertise. The sabotage methods that Reynolds employed included installation of remote-controlled devices that could disable navigation systems, placement of electronic interference equipment that disrupted communication systems, and creation of false sensor readings that would trigger emergency warnings during flight operations. The timing coordination required for Reynolds operations involved careful monitoring of flight schedules, weather conditions, and mission parameters to ensure that she would be positioned to provide assistance when the sabotaged systems failed at predetermined times and locations. The equipment modifications that Reynolds made to her own aircraft included installation of sophisticated electronic warfare systems that could interfere with other aircraft without detection, communication monitoring equipment that allowed her to track troubled pilots, and enhanced navigation systems that enabled rapid response to emergency situations. The crew manipulation techniques that Reynolds used included rotation of maintenance assignments to prevent any individual from recognizing patterns in equipment failures, compartmentalization of technical information to limit awareness of her modifications, and psychological influence over ground personnel who trusted her expertise. The first significant rescue operation that established Reynolds' reputation occurred when Lieutenant Sarah Chen's F-16 experienced complete navigation system failure during a routine training mission, leaving her disoriented and unable to locate the airbase for emergency landing procedures. Reynolds had been monitoring Chen's aircraft systems through remote electronic surveillance and had activated jamming equipment that disabled the navigation computers at a predetermined time when Chen was flying over unfamiliar terrain and poor weather conditions. The rescue operation required Reynolds to locate Chen's aircraft using her enhanced tracking systems, establish communication through backup radio channels, and guide the disoriented pilot through complex navigation procedures that brought her safely back to base despite the apparent system failures. The successful resolution of Chen's emergency was attributed to Reynolds' exceptional technical knowledge and quick thinking, enhancing her reputation for reliability and establishing her as the pilot that others could count on during mechanical emergencies. The second rescue operation involved Captain Michael Torres, whose aircraft had experienced sudden engine problems during combat training exercises, forcing him to choose between attempting an emergency landing or ejecting over hostile territory during a realistic wargame scenario. Reynolds had sabotaged Torres' engine monitoring systems to create false readings indicating critical mechanical failure, then positioned herself nearby to provide guidance for emergency procedures that would enable him to continue the mission despite the apparent engine problems. The complexity of Torres' rescue operation impressed training coordinators and flight instructors, who praised Reynolds' ability to diagnose complex mechanical problems under pressure and provide life-saving technical assistance during realistic combat conditions. The third rescue involved Major Jennifer Walsh, whose aircraft had suffered apparent hydraulic system failure during a high-altitude reconnaissance mission, creating control problems that threatened to result in loss of aircraft and pilot over enemy territory. Reynolds had installed remote-controlled hydraulic system disruptors that created realistic failure symptoms without actually compromising aircraft safety, then guided Walsh through emergency procedures that enabled successful completion of the critical intelligence-gathering mission. The fourth rescue operation targeted Captain Robert Kim during a night flying exercise when his aircraft experienced complete electrical system failure that disabled all navigation lights, communication equipment, and instrument displays, leaving him flying blind in darkness over mountainous terrain. The electrical system sabotage that Reynolds had implemented required sophisticated knowledge of aircraft wiring and power distribution systems to create failures that would appear random, while ensuring that backup systems would remain functional for emergency recovery procedures. The fifth rescue involved Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Martinez, whose aircraft had experienced apparent weapons system malfunction during live-fire training exercises, creating safety hazards that required immediate emergency procedures to prevent accidental weapon discharge or ammunition explosion. The weapons system sabotage required Reynolds to manipulate complex ordnance management computers and safety systems while ensuring that actual weapons remained secure and that apparent malfunctions could be resolved through procedures that only she was qualified to provide. The sixth rescue operation involved Captain David Thompson during an international training exercise with Allied forces when his aircraft suffered communication system failure that prevented coordination with foreign air traffic control and created potential diplomatic incidents. The communication sabotage that Reynolds had orchestrated required careful timing to create maximum apparent danger while ensuring that she could provide alternative communication methods that would prevent actual diplomatic problems or international incidents. The seventh rescue targeted Major Lisa Rodriguez during carrier landing training exercises when her aircraft experienced apparent landing system failure that prevented safe carrier deck approach and threatened to result in water landing in heavy seas with minimal rescue support available. The carrier landing sabotage required Reynolds to manipulate advanced approach control systems while maintaining coordination with Navy personnel and ensuring that alternative landing procedures could be implemented without endangering other aircraft or ship operations. The eighth rescue operation involved Captain James Wilson during aerial refueling exercises when his aircraft suffered apparent fuel system malfunction that prevented safe fuel transfer and created potential for fuel starvation during extended overwater flight operations. The fuel system sabotage that Reynolds had implemented required manipulation of complex fuel management computers and flow control systems while ensuring that emergency fuel reserves remained available for safe mission completion under her guidance. The ninth rescue involved Major Amanda Foster during formation flying exercises when her aircraft experienced apparent flight control system problems that prevented safe formation maintenance and created collision risks with other aircraft in close proximity. The flight control sabotage required Reynolds to interfere with computer-controlled stability systems while ensuring that manual flight control remained possible under her direction and that formation safety could be maintained through alternative procedures. The 10th rescue operation targeted Captain Brian Miller during combat simulation exercises when his aircraft suffered apparent radar system failure that prevented target acquisition and created tactical disadvantages during competitive training scenarios. The radar system sabotage that Reynolds had orchestrated required manipulation of sophisticated electronic warfare systems while ensuring that backup targeting methods could be implemented under her guidance to maintain training effectiveness. The 11th rescue involved Lieutenant Sarah Johnson during weather reconnaissance missions when her aircraft experienced apparent weather radar failure that prevented safe navigation through severe storm systems and created potential for catastrophic weather encounters. The weather radar sabotage required Reynolds to interfere with specialized meteorological equipment while ensuring that alternative weather avoidance procedures could be implemented through her guidance and coordination with ground-based weather services. The 12th rescue operation involved Major Kevin Chang during test pilot assignments when his aircraft suffered apparent flight test equipment malfunction that threatened to compromise critical experimental data collection and expensive test programs. The test equipment sabotage that Reynolds had implemented required manipulation of sophisticated data collection systems while ensuring that alternative testing procedures could be implemented under her supervision to salvage critical experimental objectives. The 13th rescue targeted Captain Nicole Davis during medical evacuation missions when her aircraft experienced apparent life support system problems that endangered critically injured patients being transported for emergency medical treatment. The life support sabotage required Reynolds to interfere with medical equipment and environmental systems while ensuring that emergency medical procedures could be maintained under her guidance until patients could receive proper hospital care. The 14th rescue operation involved Major Anthony Rodriguez during cargo transport missions when his aircraft suffered apparent cargo handling system failure that threatened to destabilize heavily loaded aircraft and create dangerous flight characteristics. The cargo system sabotage that Reynolds had orchestrated required manipulation of loading and weight distribution systems while ensuring that emergency cargo procedures could be implemented under her direction to maintain aircraft stability and safety. The 15th rescue involved Captain Jennifer Lee during electronic warfare training when her aircraft experienced apparent jamming system malfunction that prevented effective electronic countermeasures and created vulnerabilities during realistic combat scenarios. The electronic warfare sabotage required Reynolds to manipulate sophisticated jamming and countermeasures equipment while ensuring that alternative electronic warfare procedures could be implemented under her guidance to maintain training realism and effectiveness. The 16th rescue operation targeted Major Daniel Smith during aerial photography missions when his aircraft suffered apparent camera system failure that threatened to compromise critical intelligence collection and reconnaissance objectives. The photography system sabotage that Reynolds had implemented required manipulation of specialized reconnaissance equipment while ensuring that alternative intelligence gathering methods could be implemented under her supervision to achieve mission objectives. The 17th rescue involved Captain Rachel Taylor during air-to-air combat training when her aircraft experienced apparent targeting system failure that prevented weapons lock-on and created tactical disadvantages during competitive combat exercises. The targeting system sabotage required Reynolds to interfere with sophisticated weapons guidance systems, while ensuring that backup targeting methods could be implemented under her direction to maintain training effectiveness and pilot development. The pattern of Reynolds' rescue operations continued with increasingly complex scenarios involving disabled aircraft systems, environmental hazards, and mission-critical equipment failures that required her specific technical expertise and guidance to resolve successfully. Each rescue operation enhanced Reynolds' reputation while demonstrating her comprehensive knowledge of aircraft systems and her ability to provide life-saving assistance during diverse emergency scenarios that showcase different aspects of her technical competence. The timing of Reynolds' interventions during emergency situations became legendary among Air Force personnel, who attributed her success to exceptional situational awareness, comprehensive technical knowledge, and intuitive understanding of aircraft systems and their potential failure modes. The media coverage of Reynolds' rescue operations focused on her humble personality and reluctance to accept recognition, which made her achievements seem even more remarkable to civilian audiences who viewed her as a genuine American hero. The technical expertise that Reynolds demonstrated during rescue operations impressed aviation safety engineers and emergency response specialists who studied her methods and incorporated her innovations into standard Air Force training protocols and emergency procedures. But the flight data analysis that eventually exposed Reynolds' systematic sabotage began when Air Force digital forensics specialist Major Catherine Park noticed unusual electromagnetic signatures in aircraft black box recordings from multiple rescue operations. The statistical analysis revealed that Reynolds had been present during aircraft emergencies with frequency that exceeded normal probability distributions and suggested either extraordinary coincidence or systematic advanced knowledge of when and where mechanical failures would occur. The digital investigation expanded to include comprehensive analysis of Reynolds' aircraft systems, communication logs, and maintenance records that provided objective evidence of her activities independent of her official reports and rescue documentation. The electromagnetic signature analysis revealed that Reynolds' aircraft had been transmitting interference signals immediately before each emergency situation, establishing a pattern that could not be explained by routine flight operations or coincidental positioning. The investigation into Reynolds' sabotage operations revealed sophisticated techniques for creating realistic system failures without permanent damage, including time-delayed electronic interference, remote-controlled component disabling, and sensor manipulation that created false emergency readings. The psychological profile developed during Reynolds' investigation indicated narcissistic personality disorder combined with addiction to technical recognition that drove her to create increasingly complex emergency scenarios that showcased her problem-solving abilities and technical expertise. The evidence against Reynolds included forensic analysis of sabotage equipment found in her personal quarters, testimony from maintenance personnel who had witnessed suspicious activities, and digital records that documented her systematic targeting of fellow pilots. The investigation into potential accomplices revealed that Reynolds had operated independently, using her technical expertise and pilot authority to maintain operational security while ensuring that no other personnel understood the true nature of her emergency response activities. The arrest of Reynolds occurred during preparation for what investigators determined would have been her 48th staged aircraft emergency, as federal agents intercepted her while she was installing sabotage equipment on a training aircraft scheduled for the next day's operations. The surveillance operation that led to Reynolds' arrest had been conducted by a joint task force including Air Force investigators, FBI technical specialists, and military intelligence personnel who had been monitoring her activities for several weeks after the digital analysis revealed suspicious patterns. The confession that Reynolds eventually provided included detailed descriptions of her sabotage methods, explanations of her psychological motivations, and information about the technical equipment she had developed for creating realistic aircraft emergencies without causing permanent damage. The revelation that Reynolds had been systematically creating the aircraft emergencies that she was celebrated for resolving shocked the Air Force and aviation communities, who had viewed her as the epitome of pilot expertise and professional dedication to safety. The damage assessment, conducted after Reynolds' exposure, included analysis of the safety risks created by her sabotage operations, evaluation of the psychological trauma experienced by pilots who had been targeted, and assessment of the damage to Air Force reputation and pilot confidence. The institutional reforms implemented after Reynolds' case included enhanced oversight of aircraft maintenance and modification procedures, improved monitoring of pilot activities and aircraft systems, and strengthened protocols for detecting electronic interference and sabotage attempts. The psychological counseling provided to Reynolds victims included specialized therapy for pilots who experienced betrayal trauma related to discovering that their rescuer had been responsible for creating their life-threatening situations and ongoing trust issues with fellow pilots. The technology improvements implemented after Reynolds' exposure included advanced electromagnetic monitoring systems that could detect sabotage equipment, enhanced aircraft security systems that prevented unauthorized modifications, and improved communication protocols that made aircraft interference more difficult. The training program modifications included instruction in recognizing signs of sabotage and electronic interference, improved technical education about aircraft vulnerability to electronic attack, and enhanced coordination with federal law enforcement agencies for investigating aviation crimes. The legal proceedings against Reynolds included federal charges of aviation sabotage, endangering aircraft safety, conduct unbecoming an officer, and terrorism, with evidence demonstrating the systematic nature of her false rescue operations over an 18-month period. Reynolds' conviction resulted in life imprisonment without parole and dismissal from Air Force service with forfeiture of all benefits and honors, as the court condemned her systematic endangerment of pilot safety for personal recognition and technical validation. The impact on Air Force procedures included comprehensive review of pilot training protocols, enhanced security measures for aircraft systems and maintenance operations, and improved psychological evaluation methods for identifying personnel who might exploit their positions for recognition. The international cooperation initiatives, developed from Reynolds' case, included information sharing agreements with allied air forces, coordinated investigation protocols for aviation sabotage, and joint training programs focused on detecting and preventing aircraft terrorism and electronic warfare attacks. The academic research programs established after Reynolds' case included psychological studies of pilot motivations and technical expertise exploitation, analysis of institutional vulnerabilities to insider threats in aviation, and development of improved screening methods for identifying potentially dangerous technical personnel. Major Alexandra Reynolds had indeed assisted 47 pilots during in-flight emergencies throughout her 18-month period of systematic sabotage, but every single emergency had been artificially created through her manipulation of aircraft systems and electronic interference with flight operations. The pilots who had trusted Reynolds to guide them through life-threatening equipment failures had been victims of her psychological need for technical recognition rather than legitimate rescue operations, responding to natural equipment problems or operational hazards. Reynolds' legacy became a reminder that the most dangerous threats to aviation safety can come from trusted personnel who exploit their technical expertise and system access to create the very emergencies they claim to be preventing through heroic intervention and technical competence. The 47 aircraft emergencies that Reynolds had resolved through her rescue operations represented 47 instances where pilot lives had been deliberately endangered by the person responsible for maintaining aircraft safety and providing emergency assistance to fellow aviators' distress.